This shit is crazy.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Darius Brown. This is my co-host, Ethan. Today, we're going to dive into the topic around healthy relationships and love. Now, let me introduce our guest, Noelle Lopez, a UCCS grad student studying school and clinical counseling, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. As well as a lead peak peer health educator, which is awesome. So is Ethan, or was Ethan. Now he's promoted himself up to a social media coordinator. Congrats on both of y'all. Last but not least, we have Jordan Rhodes, Office of Institutional Equity Outreach and Prevention Program Manager here at UCCS.
Yeah, perfect. You made it.
Yeah, I tried. It got me a little bit. But what specifically is that? Like, what do you do?
Great question. So I work for Office of Institutional Equity. That's our office on campus that is basically in charge of implementing some state and federal regulations to address like sexual misconduct and then discrimination and harassment. So large title, right? Large things. And I specifically work in the outreach and prevention side, so I get to talk about things like healthy relationship, consent, intimate partner violence, really talking about those subjects that our office administers our policies for, but how can we create accessible like language and people understand, like, more importantly, what behaviors do we want to avoid, what are unhealthy, how can we create like safer campus community.
So, like, since you say you focus a lot on healthy relationships, like, how do you define a healthy relationship when everyone is so different?
That's a great question. I think for me, I feel like healthy relationships kind of I just have like an intimate partner lens, right? Like intimate partner violence lens, like that I think through just because of my background in victim advocacy and things like that, right? So when I think of a healthy relationship, my primary like thought is like, do you have a relationship that you have a balance of power, right? Are you working together to like make sure you're comfortable with the relationship? Can we talk about consent? Do we have like a healthy level of communication and I'm not like scared to have a boundary in place or scared of my partner in general? So really having that power balance with someone as you're developing your relationship.
So when you talk about that power balance, do you mean the reality of 50-50? Like, do you think that's like real? Is it attainable?
I think it depends, honestly. I think it is not always going to be 50-50. Like sometimes it varies, right? Like with your stage in your relationship and what like is happening in it, right? Like if you're, say, in an intimate partner relationship, and maybe you're having like a stressful time financially, right? Like you might give up some power and decision making within that realm, and that works for you at that time. But I think it ebbs and flows. Like overall though, do you have like some sort of balance and can you communicate around that?
Yeah, communication. Listen. So then I kind of want to ask everybody this, but what do you think really keeps two people connected? Especially when we hear about this balance and the power balance and all that stuff. So like, what do you think those things are, you guys would say? Like I would say, obviously communication, big thing. Being able to talk with your partner or your family member or whatever it is in that healthy relationship. If you can't have a conversation, then like, you already know you're kind of, I think, going in a downward spiral in a sense. I also think, without sounding like a hopeless romantic, but like almost in a sense like passion and emotion, I think really keeps people connected. Passion doesn't have to be like what happened in the bedroom, but like how you express the way you feel for a person, I think is what I would consider passion. And I think those are two of the biggest things that I think connect two people.
I'd say something that comes to mind is trust.
having that mutual trust between, I guess, two people or just the members in that relationship, and this sort of, I got your back, that type of thing. I can fall, but like you're there to kind of pick me up, and I think trust really comes to mind as well.
I was thinking acceptance. When I say acceptance, it really encompasses the idea of the good and the more challenging traits that we all have. Not like accepting behaviors that are harmful in a relationship, but understanding Jordan and I just had a conversation about how we chronically cannot close anything. Like we cannot close cabinets, close our water bottles, and just how that can probably irritate some people. But it's that acceptance piece of I can understand the areas you struggle and still want you in my life, and I'm not going to beat you down for it. There's actually been research, so you probably heard the phrase opposites attract. That is actually not true. Research has said that people that have similar values are more likely to be together and have a more sustaining relationship. And yes, we're not going to agree on everything, but the acceptance factor is certainly a lot easier when you share the same morals too.
100%.
I think I echo all of it, right? I also think it's personal too. We all have different experiences and knowledge on what works best for us too. So we're gonna prioritize different things. But yeah, communication, trust, acceptance, and just feeling just good and a good relationship, and you can be yourself, and it's not work, tough work. It's not always a challenge. There's always going to be work with anything, but I just mean that piece. You're coming in and it's acceptance, and it's all of the good things you want to feel,
That's what me and my friend were just having a conversation the other day. It's I think I struggle with how it is nowadays of how relationships are so I just want to hop into one, or I want to mess with all these different people at one time, or I just float through relationships. And I think I'm very different from that because I think, one, I was very blessed to be raised by a single mother, so I think a lot differently. But two, I kind of have this mindset of, I love rom-coms, those are probably one of my favorite movies, but I kind of want that gut feeling, right? I want that, man, I love talking to you, it's so easy to talk to you. I love the way it makes me feel when I talk to a person, and I want that kind of that good gut nauseous feeling. I know that one true love is kind of very fictional in a sense. It could happen, but it has that fictional thought to it. But just me, I want to have that gut feeling, and that's what I think I chase more than multiple people. That's 100%. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's just kind of where I've got to.
That's actually been my experience with my husband. So I knew immediately that was my person, and we've been together now for coming up on 7 years, married for 5, and it was I met him and I knew, and then it was great because I was a little bit older, 25, so I had dated a lot and figured out hey, these are the things I don't like, and really was clear on that. And so when I met him, it was oh my gosh, I've been looking for you, and it was awesome.
And I think it's so cool when that happens for people.
Yeah.
Right? But I also look, because I had a conversation with another one of my friends, but we talked about kind of how it is nowadays with what we see as love. Me, I was raised by a single mother. My parents got divorced, I think, some point when I was in high school, but they were separated when I was in 8th grade, right? And so that is what, I guess, as a kid looking up, that's who you're supposed to look to as this is what love's supposed to be right? And so I had that. I look at my friends, and they're coming from different situations, but then I even my grandparents, like my grandparents have been together for a very long time, so it's like I love looking at that, and so at least I have that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest challenge is that a lot of kids look at their parents, and so I think, I don't know what the stat is nowadays, but I think at least in my community, there's so many people that come from that divorce lifestyle that I think it's hard to know what that love is. And so it raises the question for everything. Like, I believe I've experienced it in my life, but when you think about love, what matters most?
That is a loaded question.
Well, give us like 2 days.
Yeah.
Take like a philosophy course.
Take a philosophy course, really do some internal work.
I did that freshman year. I don't think it helped. Definitely my 10 o'clock, like 10 p.m. That's what my friends joke about, is because I turned into like a brain dead philosopher at like 10 o'clock because I'm not trying to think about all the things. And so I think that's when I created this question. 10 o'clock.
Okay. Repeat it for me one more time.
When you think about love, what matters most to you?
I think for me, when I say this word, I think it encompasses a lot of ideas, because it's hard to truly pinpoint one thing. But also being a child of divorce, I'm good. But I would say commitment. But when I think of commitment, I'm not meaning like in the sense of like a forever partnership. Like, I think that would be the goal, but more in the sense of like knowing that when challenges do present, like how do you work together in that relationship to get through it, and like, you know, and like often said in like wedding vows, or you know, through sickness and through health, in good times and in bad times. And I think that idea kind of really like is important to me, because the good moments like prove why you're with that person, but so do the bad moments too. And it's like, I was just watching this like Instagram reel, and it's an individual who had stage 4 breast cancer, and she wrote in her caption, choose a spouse like your life depends on it, because it does. Because he became her primary caregiver, and I think that like that idea really just hit my heart, because our relationships, like, we are social beings, like that is so important to our health, not just like physically but mentally, emotionally. So I guess in the broader term, besides just a partnership, like choose your friends, like, you know, choose who you allow in your life, like your life depends on it. And I think we often like want to see if we are accepted and get invited to sit at other people's tables, but it's just as important for us to see who we make space for at our own as well. And so who do you want at the top of the table with you to help? So does that help? Okay.
That was a really good answer. You still processing it? Or?
I mean, that was really great. That was really good. I think for me, what comes to mind is honesty. And I say that to mean, I think in the past few years, you know, I've noticed how, you know, the term "I love you," I mean, it gets thrown around. You say it to your friends, you say it to your significant other, but like, do you really like love them? And so that came to mind of, you know, I think love is such a special, it's a special thing. You know, we all want to feel loved at the end of the day. But especially being in a relationship, whether that is romantic or, you know, familial or even just a friendship, being honest about that love that you want to like give out, it hits different than just simply saying I love you and then not necessarily meaning it, you know. Yeah, that's really what came to mind for me. Yeah.
Yeah, because I like to think that like love is a verb rather than just like a blanket like statement, because verbs are action words and
Yeah.
love has to have that action. So just saying it is great, fine and dandy, but like what are your actions also saying? Like is that conveying love too?
And I agree with both of you, especially because my friend jokes to me all the time that I can't tell my friends I love them every day, but it's like, for me, I truly believe like if I tell a person I love them, I don't have to say it every day, because like
Oh yeah.
me calling you all the time or me texting you or me hanging out with you and me spending like, I think my love language is quality time, right? And so me being able to spend quality time with them, whether it's on the phone or like do a text conversation or in person, I think that really shows how much I love them. I don't feel like I have to say the words every day. But then again, I have my mother. I had to tell my mother I love her every day. But I think, you know, you kind of find everything's a little different, like friendships a little different, especially like you were saying. I think that it does get a lot washed down because everyone's like, oh, I love you, or love you, bro, or something like that all the time. But it's like, do you really mean it? And so, like you were saying, that action piece of like, how are you actually showing love? Have you thought about it yet?
Yes, I think it's kind of similar to Noel's, but mine is unconditional. Like that's what I think of. And I think I've learned probably the most unconditional love possible. Like really the definition of like when you love someone through my kids actually, right? Because they are like kids, right? I have two toddlers, they're gonna test me. But no matter what, like they're like love for me, right? Those are my people. And so I think in your different little relationships, like there has to be this piece of like you love them no matter what, like you're committed no matter sickness, health, right? Like even if we're working through different phases that are challenging, right? Like there's that love present. And I think that's something you also have to check in with, like that also doesn't mean abusive, right? Like unconditional love doesn't mean like you don't have like boundaries around that. But for me, it's that piece of like the acceptance of I love you for exactly who you are and what you're bringing to the table in any different time.
I like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say kids are so great with that because and we have like a lot to learn from children. I think actually in our society today we grow up too fast to where we don't actually value what it's like to be a kid and how much we can learn from these little humans. But I work in a school and particularly in elementary school, and it's just so funny to see like the kids just run up to you and hug you no matter what, and like even if they barely know you, like they just are willing to give it up. Like yes, probably no sense of stranger danger has been developed in their brain, but I think that's a great idea too. Like they just give it unconditionally. They just want to.
It's like untouched.
Share that, yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
just like have no, like all of our experiences, like our parents' divorces and all of those, like I think create like those, like our armor where it's like, I don't know if I could trust this person or what, and they just don't have that. And
Puppy love.
yeah, so that's like the purest thing, like that's where you can see like the love, like such pureness and like what it would look like without the crap. Yeah.
So it is Black History Month. So I had like a tied question. I'm gonna let you guys process a little bit, but and I made sure to make it extra poetic for you guys specifically. But why does love that crosses race still feel like it has to carry more than just two parts? And as you guys process that, I can explain a little bit more. It's like for me, I my track history is always from someone that comes from a different race, ethnicity, background. That's just been my track history. And so I've experienced both ends of it, right? I've experienced, like, one time I was talking to a girl and she was explaining to me about how, like, her aunt was going around saying that I was a thug and all this different stuff. You look at me, you meet me, you know I'm not. Far from it. But then I've also had those good things where, like, families love me and, like, even like they don't even see my color type thing. But I was kind of I'm curious. I just wanted to hear other people's thoughts on why do you think we still have this one side of it where that pressure of, like, you know, we don't want you to still cross-contaminate instead of just, like, two people love each other, and that's just what that is.
I think for me, I'd say it's that, and just speaking for myself from my own experiences, fear of the unknown, fear of the unfamiliar, and just not knowing, or I guess not being familiar with maybe how another culture runs things, or, you know, how a different population or community does things. Again, not to excuse any, like, stereotypes or anything. I don't think that's right, you know. But yeah, I think that plays a huge role. I mean, myself, I'm Asian, so I'm Asian Filipino, and yeah, we see it in our culture as well, where you know, there are times where we you know, meet a significant other, and it might be from a different culture, a different race from us. But sometimes there can be that hesitancy of, well, this is how we do things. How do you love in, you know, from not just your culture, but also your own experience? How do you approach love, or in that way? Yeah, that's what I thought.
I agree. I think it's fear of change too, of, like, what is this other person or their background, right, gonna bring into our family unit. I'm not saying I have that agreement, but, like, in my experience, my family is Mexican, and that honestly was conversations, like, my dad's parents had with my dad, less so, like, me, but, like, of, like, trying to find someone in the culture, and, like, I think the thought is, like, well, it's just easier, right? They understand our way of life and things like that. But that's not great, right? Like, I think the diversity piece is important. That's how we grow, that's how we expand, that's how we get, like, different perspectives. But I just think it's, like, a fear of change. How is this thing gonna change our family dynamic? And I think from a parent perspective too, again, I'm not saying this is right, but I think it's, like, sometimes parents think, like, is an experience going to make my kid's life more difficult? And I think they apply that like, I think that that's a lens they have too, of, like, if they're dating outside the culture, does that then make their life more difficult? Again, I'm not saying that's right, but, like, that is something that I've seen that I think is tough, and it's just fear-based. And I hope that doesn't continue, but, like, that's something that I've seen.
I mean, obviously we've made so much growth, right? We wouldn't be where we are today if we didn't make growth, right? And it's a process. So, like, hopefully it keeps going, but, you know, I really do think even it's history, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's what happened in the past, not what's happening in the future or the present. It's like a lot of people, especially the older generation, wants to hold on to the past. Like, I was born in 2003, like 2030. And so that's a lot different from with my mom being born in 1974. And so just, we've already lived so many different lives and so many different world events, so many different things has happened in those two generations.
I am Hispanic. I think like I want to like broach the subject that I'm white passing. People don't know I'm Hispanic and Mexican because of the way I look. They don't get that hint unless they hear my last name, which is Lopez. So usually things are, I don't know if I necessarily have similar barriers until people find that out. But I could tell like in relationships, it's very different for me because I've noticed like since like my culture is very big on family units and like I've dated people where they don't really even talk to their like first cousins, whereas I like see my second cousins like every other month, and my great uncles and aunts, and it's a very close tight, and like all the decisions are made for the benefit of the family, not for the benefit of the individual, like maybe like other like American culture typically is of like the idea of American dream. So that's where I've like seen those barriers, and I haven't had this experience, but my brother has like encountered where with racism where a girl that he liked that they were dating had to break up with him because the father didn't approve because of his last name Lopez, and the barriers he perceived of like if it continued and they got married and she were to change her last name, then she would face other racial like tensions, which is unfortunate. And I think yes, we have grown so much as a society, and I think there's a lot of growth to be done. I completely agree with Jordan and Ethan about like those barriers and like that fear of the unknown and change. I mean, we all have our own biases. Some biases we don't even recognize, those implicit ones, and that is just created by living in the environment that we were exposed to as soon as we were born into it. And there's patterns of behaviors, and change is hard because when the pattern's been so deeply systemic, people don't know how to change or want to change. And I also think like the experiences other generations have had outside of ours, so like our parents, there was a certain social norm, not also saying it was right then, but it does create that fear for the future. But we're also, the way they've solved problems is not the way that we would solve them now, but we also are just now experiencing different problems than they were, I guess, that the tools that we have to correct them are not advanced enough to do so. It's kind of like fixing stuff with or trying to create new solutions with old solutions that don't work, if that makes sense. So I think that comes a lot in relationships too, where when we are trying to create a culture of acceptance, like we still have a lot of groundwork to cover and experience, and it's hard to, I don't want to like say like, it's easy to like kind of bash and say like, ask people like to understand where we're coming from as like young people, when that's just all they've ever known too. And I think there's like that type of grace that we need to give, and be advocates. And I think one great way to be advocates about that is through education, and just continue to educate people about the fruitfulness that can come in mixed relationships, because we all bring different identities to the table, not just race, but other parts, like sexuality, religion, etc. So
I think it's good to like talk about it too, like create, like the only way you will not fear something is if you talk through it and like get more education around it. So I think it's just like creating those spaces too for communication of like, hey, how can we just find common ground to have a conversation and work through some of the fear.
And I think that's just my purpose with this. Like one, I want to reach somebody. Like even if it's just one person, I want to reach one person.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want people to see that we can spark these conversations, and you see how like natural and flow it is, because just throwing these kind of philosophical questions to you guys and make you guys have to think, but these are conversations that we could be having that's not in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I really wanted to achieve with this.
Yeah.
I think conversation catapults into change. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what starts, that's like, is the main starter. And I think we struggle a lot in American culture to have those conversations because we don't think someone else will understand. So I think that we really have to try to like learn the value of listening, not just to talk, but to be truly heard and hear people and see their perspectives to learn and hopefully grow in our own.
Empathize.
Yes.
So now I wanted to try something different from my other podcast. I tasked these two to come up with a question or two to ask, and then we can all answer. And so I'm gonna pass the iPad over.
Oh, where's my question?
You can have a
I'm
question.
just kidding.
Come up with one right off the bat. You want to do that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, so of course when I was when Darius asked me to come up with questions, I immediately thought of Dumbledore and like his voice, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's the one for this particular quote. So if you watched Harry Potter, particularly in the first film, he says, "It takes courage to stand up to our enemies, and even more to stand up to our friends." So my question is for you all. What role do boundaries play in maintaining healthy friendships? And why is it often hardest to set those limits with the people we are closest to?
I told you the question. Hey.
And I can repeat that too.
Yeah, one more time. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you want me to read the quote?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Gotta hear it again.
Yeah. Well, can't do it in his voice though, but if you can like channel. It takes courage to stand up to our enemies, and even more to stand up to our friends. What role do boundaries play in maintaining healthy relationships or friendships? And why is it often hardest to set those limits with the people we are closest to?
Okay. I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay.
I in therapy had to go through talking about boundaries, and so that's something I had to go through, especially with friendships and stuff. And so I think the hardest part about setting that is when you didn't set it from the start. I think that like me, when I was in high school, I was very like loved everybody, hugged everybody. Like I wanted to be a lot of people's friends. I had a ton of friends. I compared myself to be a chameleon, could fit in all these different groups. But now I'm not like that at all. I'm a lot more introverted. I don't drink anymore. I'm not a fan of going to the clubs or like partying and stuff like that anymore. And so since I didn't really set that boundary when I was first like that, it kind of makes it hard now to be like, I don't do that anymore. And so it really does take a certain friendship for them to be like, okay, like I accept that. Some friends are like you used to do that, like why don't you still do that? And I think that's like the hardest part is, I mean, that's you growing through life, right? It's like you grow up, you learn what you like, learn what you don't like, kind of what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But I think it's the hardest part about those boundaries is setting them later once you actually have figured those out.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think, here's what I'll say about boundaries. I think they're foundational in every relationship that you have. Like that is friendships, that's work, that's everywhere, right? We have to know ourselves enough to be able to like figure out like what works well for us and how do we want these relationships to look, right? So like setting boundaries with friends sets us up to then set boundaries with partners, because it's really difficult, right? And I think for me, I think the difficult piece is like what you're saying, right? Like if I set this boundary, they might not like me, they might not want to hang out with me, I might lose this person. And then we tip into like, well, that's then not like that unconditional love that we need, right? But it is still scary to like lose that friendship or person or any of that. So I think it's just like a lot of like, I think they're so important for every piece of your life, but specifically so we all can set up other, like be able to practice having those conversations, and they can be really small. Like, hey, I'm not gonna drink with you at this party. That's a small boundary. Could have consequences of like, I'm not gonna invite Darius out anymore. But then maybe not, and it is received well. And I think you can get a temperature too on the people in your life, and that's also scary. Like, if I'm setting boundaries and it's not getting received, and I have no friends at the end of the month, like that is going to be hard to work through. But like that's going to come that month or later when you try to have like larger boundaries. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Ooh. So this really hits home for me. I think the past few months, we're going through some, I guess just myself being in a position where, I had to set those boundaries with friends. And I think you guys covered it really well because it's true. I think at the very end, when I kind of mustered up that courage to kind of say, this isn't right, I don't vibe with this, I feel disrespected. At the very end, it just left me with, they didn't really, I guess, receive it the way that I thought, and then, come to find out, like, there's gossip going around, come to find out people unfollowed me, and so and then, I think my circle has definitely it became smaller significantly. I think for personally, one thing that I've been working on is just addressing and kind of accepting the fact that I tend to people please, and really doing a lot of reflection. I realized, like what's better, me being in that friendship that made me uncomfortable with no boundaries, made me question everything, my self-respect, or me not necessarily having friends, but feeling more stronger to speak up, feeling more confident, knowing what I am worth, and so it is difficult, it is scary. Oh my gosh, when I sent that message, when I had that conversation, I was like shaking, because Jordan, I think you cover it perfectly. I mean, it's that fear of, well, at the end, am I going to lose this person? And then, as humans, we want to feel loved, we want to feel accepted. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I hate rejection. I don't like that feeling. So yeah, it's scary, but I mean, in this conversation with relationships, I think respect should be like mutual, and if that isn't met, I think at that point you need to question, like boundaries or whatnot. But yeah, this really hit home for me, and I'm really glad that you asked that question because it's so real. I mean, we all go through it in one way or another. Yeah.
I think it was either a show or a movie I just watched, but they said having 6 friends, 6 really good friends, is better than having 15, 20 friends.
Mm-hmm. I have another metaphor for that, or whatever language device it is, but Darius and I, we are both like, we love TV shows and movies, and I love Pinterest, so I'm going to be probably bringing a lot of quotes in, but I saw something that's like, 4 quarters are better than 100 pennies because they are worth more. And that's like the same concept that applies to friendship. I know the penny is probably not going to be existent eventually, so you can say nickels and how many that is, inflation. But I love thinking that because it's easy like to think like we want to be accepted. Often it's like promoted, like even thinking back to like the TV shows and movies that we've watched as children. To be this idea of popular, and like to be popular you have to have a lot of friends. But we don't talk about quality friendships, we talk about quantity friendships a lot. So the idea of like I'd rather actually now in my life as I grow older have a shorter circle if that means that they're all quality people that understand me. And I think a big idea with boundaries too is my therapist said this to me because I also have difficult times with boundaries. That boundaries should build connection, not break it. And I've seen that in different relationships. Like I also went through some really bad friendship breakups the last couple of years, and they were devastating. But I can see now being out of the woods just for a little bit of time, and working on those feelings, that losing those friendships actually gave me a perspective on like the ones that I do have, and like to actually like cherish them and like grow them and actually give my time to devote to it, because it's easy to also neglect the good friends that we have because they're always just there, or they've always done the thing that we needed them to do, and focus on our time on trying to save relationships that maybe aren't salvageable. Not to say that those friends are bad people, they're not bad people, they're just not what we need. And I also find myself often thinking this like in the school setting too, as a school counselor. Like you'll see situations where parents can be a little bit harmful to their children, but I have to come to the perspective that parents are doing the best they can for their child. Just sometimes their best isn't what the child needs. And that's the same with any relationship we have. Like our friends can be the best friend that they could be to us, even though that's not what we need or is really what is the best for us. So
And so just to save time, because I know you gotta go, I'm gonna let Ethan ask his question, and then Noelle has a really good quote that she's gonna leave us off with.
Okay.
But Ethan, go for it.
Yes, so we covered a lot of different, different types of relationships, obviously friendships, relationships, and whatnot. I wanted to highlight the topic of family, because if you really think about it, I mean, depending on how, you grew up, what family looked like, but that was kind of like our first sort of exposure to what relationships are, Family could be, blood related or not. But how does family influence the way you may view relationships, or how you may approach relationships? And this doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, it could be, friendships or what.
I think it influences everything, right? Because those are the behaviors that we learn from. So that could be good or bad, right? Like to your point, like of parents like trying to do the best, but like sometimes they're human, right? Like everybody's human, we all make mistakes, we all are growing, we're all on our path. Like no one is an expert fully on everything. Well, like I'm sure there's experts on everything, you know what I mean? On the human experience I'm talking about. So I think like that's really where our learned behavior comes from, like as small as to like my daughter watching my husband and I in the kitchen and how we communicate, right? Like how I'm saying a need or how I'm expressing a need that I have. Like she's watching that and absorbing that. So I think that those are like our foundational pieces that we take with us. And the good stuff we want to keep, right? And then the stuff that maybe is more challenging, that's when we kind of have to see those, like, what can we work on, right? Like, if I'm thinking of like the way I communicate with my parents, like what are some good things and what can I learn better to do in my relationship that I've seen that are not great. So I think it's a really great blueprint on how to approach relationships, how we learn, and how we grow.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty foundational, because your interactions with your families are gonna be like the first relationships you're ever gonna have in your life. And like, not to get a little dark here, but I think like even just with like siblings, how important that is, because hopefully you get to be with a sibling for the rest of your life, or it's like to see they know you for your whole entire life. That's crazy. Like they're the only person that's gonna see that. So that's like very integral to our health. I think one thing that like particularly like has stuck with me over the years with my parents' divorce is that my dad always tells me like, I hope you avoid the bad with what happened between your mom and I, but I always hope that you take the good from the relationship and who we are as people to carry into your other relationships. And I think that's very fair statement to say, because we want to break certain like cycles and everything, but also acknowledging that my family has been very important to how I live my life and what those values are. So I think it just comes to like also as a human being and being like just being an individual, deciphering what works for me and what I want for my life and how can I get from point A to point B. I guess if that answers. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's gonna get a little intense a little bit for a second, but you talked about the sibling love, and so for me, I did have a sister, and she passed away 2020 with brain cancer, and so being open and honest, I cried the other night because I was thinking about her, and I was thinking about how much I love this person, and how much like just I started thinking about different things about her, like whenever I listen to music and I listen to deep cut music. And I always think about her and how kind she was, how smart she was, how loving she was, and how big her heart is. And so I think after losing her, obviously took me time to go through that process of grief. And, you know, you still always kind of go through it a little bit. But I remember her big heart. And so my parents obviously divorced before then, but I think I'm trying to bring in that big heart because I think I have a little bit of a big heart. And so I look at like how much I love people no matter what they do. And like, I may not have a great relationship with my dad, but I know that I love him because at the end of the day, that's my dad. And so I am able to take away things from him. I think even with my mom gets on my nerves, but I love her to death. Even my friendships, I try to find, like I love my friends. So yeah, I think it's just having a big heart. If that answers.
Yeah. I think we all touch like great points. I think for me, you learn about yourself a lot, you know, with your family. Obviously, I mean, it's the people that know you, and you kind of get to know more about the stuff that you do like in a relationship and stuff that you don't necessarily want to do in a relationship. So yeah, great conversations.
Yeah, and I just want to say this. You can love your family, but that doesn't mean you have to accept their behaviors sometimes or carry that on. I think that's a big point.
Yes,
I think
yes.
they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think get into that idea of like, oh, I have to love them or I have to accept this because they're family. No, not true. Not true.
Absolutely.
Everybody's experience is different with them, so.
I've gone through phases. I've actually haven't talked to my mom in about a year because I had to draw boundaries and we had like some challenging conversations, and I think that that's what I mean. We have the conditional love or the unconditional love, but not when it like continuously over crosses your boundaries or is abusive. Like there's a line for that, and everybody has the draw that, but like don't feel like you have to continue relationships that are harmful.
And just because you set those boundaries too, and like, you know, you are where you are. I feel like to an extent you're always still gonna have love for that person, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the realest thing.
It just can be from a distance.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna let Noelle say her quote. You need the iPad, or are you good? You got it.
So the quote is, "You like because, but you love despite."
Yes.
And that's from the movie Step Up. I thought I created it. Apparently, I also just dreamt that. And then I really was like the 10 p.m. delusions. So that's probably what's going on Pinterest and all that. But yeah.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna give you guys all your flowers. I appreciate you guys coming on. Appreciate you guys for listening. I hope you guys find that puppy love. I hope you find love with your family, your friends, your self-love, all of it. I appreciate y'all. Much love. Gone.
This shit is crazy. This shit is crazy.